Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birth Your Vision podcast. I am so excited to welcome you back to season 8, which is finally here. And so, with me today, I will be setting off the scene, celebrating International Women's Day with the theme Break the Bias. So, in recognition of the Women's History Month and International Women's Day, I have asked some amazing, influential female leaders who are going to be sharing with us how they've been actually able to overcome obstacles as business and also in their workplace as well. So, the women leaders are definitely needed throughout the world, from operating businesses to leading countries. And obviously, it's important that we celebrate women in leadership. So today, I am joined by the amazing Melanie, who is going to be, talking all about different types of ways in which she's been able to rise to a leadership role, and also breaking down the obstacles, for women in leadership. So Melanie is an award-winning HR specialist. She's a leadership coach. She's an author and the founder of Eden Mayers, HR consultant. And also, she has 20 years of strategic and operational human resources experience across a range of industries, including retail, IT, and education. So she's joining me today to tell us all about her experience, being a powerful woman in leadership. So welcome to you, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So good to see you. So first and foremost, happy International Women's Day.
Yeah, same to you and to all of your viewers out there. Have an amazing
Absolutely.
International
So, yeah. So, what are you doing for today on this special day as we celebrate International Women's Day across the world?
Women's Day. So this morning, actually, I started off I ran 5 miles this morning, and it was
Wow.
in honor of International Women's Day, very much around the running group that I run with, who are called Black Girls Do Run UK. We
Right.
also um, donated money to Sister Space, which is a charity that helps women who are suffering from domestic violence and things like that. So it was like run, donate the money, take a picture, do that kind of thing. So that was my morning. And then I have my 2 young princesses, queens in the making, to get off to school. I'm talking to you, and then I have about 3 other things that I'm listening to part of today. But I looked at my schedule, and this month I am on about 5 different panels for different things. So lots of them are talking about biases in leadership, and then some things that are around HR. So lots to do.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so inspired by, your journey, Melanie, because, being a mother, being someone who has been in business for a very long time, and, your background is in HR. Could you just take us through your journey in becoming who you are today?
Oh wow. Okay. So I'm a person who loves, so like as a child and things, I love reading. I love, I play chess, I do all those kind of things. I'm very much into the how do things work, thinking about the strategy and the kind of the back end of it. And I think when I was growing up, it was very much so I speak a lot with my hands. And I remember being told, yeah, I remember being told, don't speak with, but growing up, it was don't speak with your hands. Nobody's going to focus on what you're doing. Your hands are going all over the place. And I would be like sitting on my hands and trying to keep myself quiet. And I made myself small. I made myself fit
Mm,
into what the expectation was. But as I studied, so I went to university, I studied computer science, and there were, I don't know, in a class of 200 there were maybe 20 girls,
mhm.
20 women.
Yeah.
And so it was, you were always fighting to be heard, you were always fighting to have your way. And as I kind of got through my studies, I realized that IT wasn't really where I wanted to be. It was the solution I wanted to do, not the programming end of it. And then I started my first job and I came into HR, and I just love it. I love talking to people, finding out their problems, finding a solution, helping teams to be better, helping them to be more effective. And once I found that, my career progressed really quickly.
Mm,
And so I found myself at 20, where was I? 25. I was head of HR for Europe for Rosetta Stone, so it's a language learning company that's from the States. Building their offices in Germany, doing all of that good stuff. And it was great. I really I really enjoyed it. And then I continued working in consulting and got pregnant with my first daughter. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to go to work. I was going to go on maternity leave and go to work. It's going to be fine. And I came back to work and I missed my baby. I was so used to traveling. I didn't think it would be anything. I was used to leaving the house on Monday with a suitcase and coming back home on a Thursday. And suddenly it was like, but I missed my baby. I'm missing seeing her grow up. And I'm missing, you know, my mum was looking after her, but I missed her first steps because I wasn't there. And so for me, I was like, well, that's not what I want. And at that same point in time, people kept asking me for HR advice. They kept asking me to do stuff, and people kept saying, you should be charging for this. Why do you not have your own business? Why are you not doing that? And so when Eden got to 1, I incorporated the business. So Eden is the name of my firstborn. It's also the name of the business. And so when she got to 1, I incorporated the business. She's 9 now, which is ridiculous. And so I was like, right, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to start to build it. And then, you know, as God likes to do these amazing things to us, found out I was pregnant with my second daughter. So I stayed working and built the business on the side and went on maternity leave and kind of told my boss, when I come back, I'm going to come back part-time. And I just built up the business so that I was able to leave within I went back for maybe 6 to 9 months and then I left. And I've been running the business ever since full time because I wanted the work that I loved. I wanted all of those things, but I also wanted to be able to drop my children to school. I wanted to be able to go on school trips. I wanted to be able to pick them up, and I wanted to be able to do that and still do work that I really enjoyed.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how I've got to where I am now.
That's incredible. And as you were speaking, I could actually relate to many of the chapters in your life. So when you mentioned, you know, going to university and also, you know, getting involved in terms of doing what you love and having children, one came and another one came. And, you know, you started to kind of, you know, build your skills. And people were saying to you, well, you should be able to charge for this. This is an amazing skill that you have. And I just wanted to kind of talk from that angle. You know, women, sometimes we definitely kind of underestimate ourselves and also the skills that we have. And sometimes we have this limiting beliefs and, you know, this kind of negative thoughts in our mind that I'm not really good enough, you know, and, you know, how can I possibly charge for this service? You know, I'm just trying to, you know, embark on a new skill, but I'm not really there yet. So when other people tell you that you are amazing, you can actually charge for this service. I think as time goes on, with a bit of support and mentoring, we start to understand that we are very skillful and that we are very good in terms of, you know, using these skills and turning it into a profit-making business. So I just wanted to kind of ask you, you know, in terms of what really kind of encouraged you to really get started to turn that skill of yours into a profitable business?
So I think for me, I mean, what I guess probably where I was lucky is I worked for a consultancy. So I knew what they paid me and I knew what they were charging the clients for my time.
Right.
And so for me, I think part of it was that. So part of it was, well, I know that this is what you're charging me at. I know this is what money you're making out of the skills that I have. And so for me, it was very much about making sure that I knew my stuff. So I did. So, you know, in that story, I didn't tell you about when I decided, right, fine, HR was for me. I went off and I did my master's. I made sure I had my qualifications before when I decided that I was going to leave my corporate role. I also went for an additional chartership with the CIPD. So I wanted to make sure that I had all those boxes ticked. So I was like, well, here's all my here are the receipts. They're here. So I wanted to make sure I had that. But I think also a lot of it for me was that I needed to. A lot of it for me was about spending a bit of time understanding who I really am. So I'm a person of faith. So for me, my relationship with God is very important. And so before I make any decisions, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to speak to my husband about it. We're going to look to work out what the right answer is, what the right move is. And I think very much for me was that I knew I needed something else, and it was, do I go and look for another job that perhaps might give me the balance that I want, or am I setting this thing up? And for me, what I've always found is there's always that little thing. There's always that, you know, you said someone says you're doing really great, why don't you charge someone? Or someone comes to you and like, I really need this thing, like there was always something that would come, always that feedback, always something that would make me recognize, actually, I am really good at this. I do know
Yeah.
my stuff. I do know what I'm saying. And also you have to surround yourself with, when I say surround, I mean, you need 2, 3 good people who are there and have got your back, and
Yeah.
who even when you're feeling like, oh, this went wrong or this isn't great, are like, actually, no, you are fantastic and you are doing a great job. And I think women
Absolutely.
are definitely, we can be our worst
Mm.
critic because
Critique.
we see all the cracks, we see all the things that aren't right. We don't necessarily,
Mm.
you do loads of beautiful events, right? And I
Yeah.
bet you there'll be, I don't know, a flower out of place. There'll be something that you would arrange that didn't turn up, and all that'll be in your mind will be that thing.
Yeah.
And nobody else knows. Nobody notices.
Nobody else understands what's going on, so why are you bothered?
Exactly, but that often happens. So in your head, you're like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
going to be terrible because I haven't done this thing." So I do think that as women, we do. I say it a lot of times. I help clients to recruit often, right? And you get CVs. You get a
Mm.
CV. You get a CV from a woman. She's ticked every box. She wants to show that she's got every skill. You get a CV from a man.
Everything.
He's got like 50, 60% of stuff, but he thinks it's going to be great. And I think that happens. I've seen it happen corporately so many times. There've been women who are amazing. I'm like, go for this promotion, go for this thing. Oh, I'm not sure, I don't know. And you have a guy who's like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. Why not? And I think
Mm.
sometimes we need to take that attitude. Nothing ventured,
Yes.
nothing gained. We have to just put ourselves forward. And if we're not successful, at least we've learned something.
Absolutely. I totally concur with you. I wanted to kind of talk more a little bit more about the challenges for female leaders in the workplace
Mm.
and obviously in business as well. So there are so many different type of challenges that kind of affect us in our workplaces as well. And I think that you've mentioned one or two of it in terms of trusting your own words and
Mm.
believing in your own skills and in your own abilities, and not trying to conform to being someone who's perfect. Sometimes things do not go your way. That's okay. It's about learning how to manage that. And some of us, we suffer from imposter syndrome as well. That's another big thing. And also, we struggle from building alliance. There's so many different challenges that female leaders face. What have you actually encountered or even faced along your journey?
Yeah, so I think like you said, there are lots of different things that you can come across. I think for me, one of
Yeah,
the things that I faced was, I think there was this expectation that I didn't want to pursue my career once I became a parent, which was very weird to me. And
right.
so, um, so the boss that I had at the time was lovely, but he had a wife who'd gone part time when they had children. He was very happy
Mm,
to kind of like just do what she needed to do, focus on the children, so he could travel all over the UK and do whatever. And so I think he perceived that that was where everybody who had a child in an organization was, that you wanted to just be in a safe spot. And he actually put me in a place where I felt like I'd been put on a mummy track. I was like on this really boring account. Um, and it was really killing me. And to be fair, it was a thing that made me leave. So it wasn't a bad thing.
yeah,
Um, but I think often there is this, people can make an assumption. So I have friends who are leaders who don't have children, who feel like they have to go out and say, I don't have children, I don't want to have children, because they feel like if they don't say that, it's going to hold them back. I
yeah,
think that so I think sometimes it's that there's an assumption based on what the people around you have seen, what happens in their life and their family. They expect that everybody's on that same path, on that same trail, looking for that same thing. So that's
mm,
one of the things that we need to get over, the fact that everybody's different, and you have to ask the question.
yeah,
You have to find out where the people in your team want to be, what their aspiration is. There are some people who are like, I just want to come into work and I just want to go home, and there are other people who really want to reach for the stars. You have to give them that opportunity. If you don't ask them, you don't know. You can't make those assumptions. I
that's
think
right.
I think another big thing for women in leadership is that we don't always, as you said, we don't put ourselves forward. So I
Mm,
think a lot of the times, we don't ask for a mentor, we don't ask for the training, we don't ask, can I shadow you? We don't say, oh, that project looks interesting, can I get involved in it? We just
yeah,
sit there saying, well, as long as I do what they've employed me to do and I do it well,
mm,
progression will come. That doesn't always happen. You have to speak up for yourself. You have to
that's right.
say, actually, this is of interest to me. This is where I'd like my career to go. How can you help me do that? And I think the other thing is also you like just using our networks more. I think we have a tendency to, we don't, you know, this, what do they say, your network is your net worth. We don't necessarily take the time to get to know people. We don't necessarily take the time to go out and meet new people and keep in contact with them, and follow up and meet for a coffee and do those things. I think often because our time is stretched, especially if we are wives and mothers, the
Yeah.
idea of I'm going to go after work and have a drink at the bar, or I'm going to go for a coffee, or I'm going to have lunch with this person. So I've got work to do, I've got things to do. But actually, this stuff is really important. And I think that
Yeah.
it's something that we have to schedule in. We have to schedule in that time. So whether you are an employee or you're a business owner, you should always have some time, that networking time. It might be, I remember when I first started, I said I was committed to doing 2 networking things a month. That was it. But I had to do 2 a month, and I needed to go out, and I needed to, um, I think in my mind, I think it was like I needed to meet 5 new people. So
Yeah.
if I went out and I met 5 new people, 5 new business cards, and people to talk to, then I was like, okay, fine, I can go home now. But I had to go do that. And so sometimes you have to make yourself do those kind of things.
Yeah.
When you join a new organization, you have to go and try and, meet the senior people, meet the key stakeholders, build your relationships, build your brand so that they know you. And so they know they'll come to you and they'll talk to you. It's really important.
So definitely, absolutely. When it comes to kind of setting up your goals in terms of meeting other people and building alliance, I think you have to be very strategic. And I always find that people do it just because they need to do it, because it's part of all this whole business structure. But really, it's about being strategic, because at the end of the day, going to events and building up relationship, you have to know the reason why you want to build that relationship and what is the value you're bringing to the table, and vice versa. So it's so important that we women in leadership who are looking to build our relationship, looking to form collaborations, that we understand exactly what we are doing and why we are doing it, and raising our voices and really using it. You've said a lot of things about, many of us don't really talk a lot in terms of putting ourselves forward. That's the first step, to be quite honest. That's the starting point. Putting yourself forward, understanding the structure of your workplace, understanding where you are at within your business, and making sure that you are surrounded by great positive people. And sometimes some of us, we don't even follow up. So we don't even know what the results or what outcomes will come out of the connections we've made from a networking event. And so sometimes I will hear women say, oh, I've been to networking events, I didn't really like it. But what did you do after that?
Mm.
Was you productive? Did you follow up? So those kind of things are very important. They really shape up the leadership role in you. So, talking about leadership, I just want to know about your passion in terms of raising leaders. So if you can just, take us through, what is it that makes you so passionate about building great leaders?
So one of the things that I found when I worked corporately and now is that what often happens is you start a business because you're great at doing a thing, right? You want to do this amazing thing, you get value from it, obviously you have to make your money and all those things, right? So you're trying to do all these things, and then you get to a stage where you realize, I can't do it by myself, I need to get someone to help. But generally speaking, leading and managing people is not anybody's default. It's not something that they naturally do. But for some strange reason, there's this exception that you should just be able to do it. You don't need training, you don't need a qualification, you just go out and manage a bunch of people. And that's not true. And in the corporate world, what I used to see happen all the time was you'd have someone who's great at their job, they'd be promoted to manage a team, but they'd be given no support, and then people would start to leave, and they'd be unhappy, and they'd be working really long hours, and there'd be all of these different things happening because they hadn't been given the parameters, they hadn't been given the skills, nobody was helping them to build their business. And your team is everything. Like,
Yeah,
you can only do so much by yourself. As
right.
soon as you want to really build your business, you want to really take it to the next level, you have to have people you have to work with, whether they're contractors, consultants, um, employees, whatever they are. You have to work with people. And so you have to understand, you have to know how to talk to people, you have to know how to communicate effectively, you have to know how to get them on board to deliver what you want. You need to understand what motivates them, you need to know what's going to keep them happy. And all of those things is a skill set in itself. And so for me,
Definitely.
it was really important that I took that time to help people to develop those skills. So and often what I found was whenever often when I go into an organization, it's because there's a problem. And then once I fix the problem, I find out that underneath that is a leadership gap. Underneath that is an issue with your communication, and an issue with how you've developed your team, an issue with setting clear objectives, all of the things that an effective leader should do. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. And so in 2020, God, it feels like such a long time ago. In 2020, I had put on my vision board that I was going to write a book, and I didn't know all of the things that were going to happen in 2020.
Yeah.
But I still managed to write and launch my book. My book is called Leading for Growth, and it very much is based at how my belief is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So how you lead your home will also be how you lead your team. It's not going to be
Yeah.
hugely different, right? So
Mm.
it's about setting out the stance, understanding what you want as an individual, what you want for your life, for your family, for your fun, for your friendships, all of those things, and how that comes into your business, and how that comes into your work life, and how you build those leadership skills that you need to make sure that everything in your life runs smoothly. Because I have never found someone who's disorganized at work who's organized at home, or vice versa. Right? So we need to get all our ducks in a row. So for me, that's been a big thing, because I found that fundamentally the thing that often sits underneath everything is that
Mm.
ability to really manage and lead effectively, and it would eliminate a whole bunch of issues if people just got those things right from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think effective communication, it's so key, especially when it comes to career advancement,
Mm.
especially for women in leadership. It calls for them to really speak up and to really know how to communicate. And, it's a very skillful thing, and they have to be consistent with it. They have to be sure, they have to know their objectives and things like that, which is really, really true. Which brings me to the next question in terms of, is there a difference between how a man or a woman leads? This is a
So
very interesting question.
it really is. So I think the thing is there are definitely masculine and feminine traits. I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I've seen is that often women feel like they need to demonstrate these masculine traits in order to progress.
Mm.
And then it makes it, and so it can make it difficult, and again will cause conflict, because they are showing a persona that isn't
Mm.
necessarily them. They are just demonstrating this kind of persona because they think this is the kind of person they ought to be,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily sit well with them. I think that so I have found very amazingly intuitive male leaders, and I found some complete disasters of female leaders. But in the main, what I find is that female leaders tend to have more of a nurturing, more of a caring persona. So they tend to want to, help and support and do all of those things. And I think that works. It does work very. It can work very well, but there's also a
Mm.
point in time when you do have to say, okay, enough's enough. So,
Yeah.
for example, I work with a female leader, and she's got a team member, and she's told that team member, the next time you do this thing, that's it. This is your last chance. But when you've
Right.
told them that 3 times,
Mm.
it doesn't it doesn't hold any weight anymore, right? So the point the point for me was, well, you have to be your word, you have to say your word. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and do that.
Yeah.
And I think that, from a point of view of developing her team, getting, progressing and doing all those wonderful things, she was great at doing that. She wanted them to, appreciate where she was coming from, like
Right.
her, want to be with her. But on the other hand, when it came down to doing the tough stuff, she wasn't so great at doing that. Whereas on the other hand, I've worked with male leaders who are very good at making sure that everybody's staying on track and doing what they need. But then when it comes down to that, the emotional intelligence of understanding when someone comes into the building that they've
Mm.
probably just had an argument with their wife, or they've had something's gone wrong. They
Yeah.
haven't got that. So they come in and they're straight into the conversation, straight into the work talk. And I'm like, actually, no, there's something else here that you need to understand. So I do
Hmm.
think that there are great there are great things both ways, and we need to kind of meld them together. It's really about building that kind of emotional intelligence, and that servant leadership where you're looking at how do I help my team to be the very best?
Right.
How do I get to the bottom of what they're doing? So a lot of that is about asking the right questions. I think I've said this before. It's about asking the right questions, making sure that
Yeah.
people know, um, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Understanding things like, knowing who, how's the wife or the children or your parents, or like being able to do that, creating a
Mm,
safe space where a person can be themselves, um, and still can be successful. I think often that's the challenge. You want someone to be a mirror image of you, but
yes.
actually the joy, the beauty of a great team is when everybody comes with their own particular skills and insights, and they can make the business even better because everybody's coming from a different angle. Everybody's has a different insight, and so they're like, "Did you think about this thing?" And oh, actually, no, I didn't think about that. That was really great. Those are the kind of things that you need but you have to build a relationship before people will say that to you. Otherwise, they think they're going to
Definitely.
be shut down. They're never going to tell you those things.
So, so true. Just looking at the comments, Daniel Meyer said, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, build a team, which is very
Yeah.
important. That was something that you touched on in terms of you can't do everything by yourself. And Ireland was not built in a day and it wasn't built by one person. So
Mm.
it's important that we have a great team, which I think you're a great advocate for. You talk a lot about team building and you're in the process of building something around team building, which is very, very important. And when it comes to men and women, we all deliver the leadership role in different ways. We're both unique in our own ways.
Mm.
And I prefer both, actually, because I've experienced male leadership and I've also experienced female leadership, and we all bring something unique to the table. The women are more sensitive, more caring, while the men are more bold and just want to go for it. And sometimes it's important to kind of understand each role, which is very, very important. So talking about roles, I want to know about different types of leadership roles in terms of what's the difference between what are the barriers that women experience sort of when it comes to getting leadership roles, because there are so many different types of leadership role. You
Mm.
can become a CEO, a director, be a leader of your own company, all different types of role. But what are the barriers
So I
to
think, yeah,
women in those roles?
yeah. So I think a lot of so I think when it comes down to within the corporate world, I think a lot of the barriers are around getting the experience and getting
Mm,
the exposure.
right.
So generally speaking, when most organizations, you look down and you're like, right, if this person leaves, who in their team might be the right person to progress, to move up to the next level, who's been covering for them when they've been on holiday, who's been shadowing them, who are they mentoring. And I think often what happens in those situations is the numbers aren't in our favor. There tend to be way more
Mm,
men than there tend to be women in those positions. And I think that is a really big thing. You want to, in order to progress, you need to
mm,
be able to demonstrate and show your skills. So you have to volunteer, you have to do the extra hours, you have to be there
yes.
late night sometimes. And I think sometimes that's where we struggle. Especially if we've got other commitments. And so,
Mm,
if you have to leave at 6 o'clock to go and collect your children from the childminder, it's always going to, there's always going to be that struggle, because then it's going to be like, oh, how are you going to entertain the client? How are you going to take them?
yeah.
How are you going to do these things? So I do think a lot of it is around those people who are in leadership pushing better norms. So
Yeah.
one of the good things about this whole COVID situation is the whole hybrid working, and everybody's working from home, right? So even now, my husband's only back in the office 2 days a week. But what it meant was that it wasn't just the women who were then trying to homeschool and all these things. It was both, and they were having to understand, well, he was also telling his boss, you have to understand that I've got this, I've got my teacher, I need to do this thing. I'm
Yeah.
not available to do this meeting at this time. I can do it at this time, and this is when I finish. And I think it requires all of us to kind of be a little bit more demanding in that sense of we actually need more flexibility, we need more of a work-life balance, and
Yeah.
then that will obviously give the opportunity for women to then, so then you can, again, you can be covering, you can be doing those things. It doesn't mean you have to give up your life to do it. um,
Right.
and so you can be seen. And that's why when I was talking earlier about the networking thing, you need to meet, if you're not in the C-suite, you need to meet some of the people in the C-suite. You need to make sure that they know your name. You need to say, you need to say hi, you need to say smile, you need to shake hands, you need to do that. And also, like I said, things like when your boss is going on leave, offer to cover for them, ask them if there's anything you need to do, if there's a report that needs doing, do it. Like, you have
Mm.
to put yourself forward, you have to show that you have the skills, you have to show that you're willing, you have to say, this is what interests me, this is where I need to be. I think a lot
Yeah.
of times as women, we don't necessarily speak up. um, and I do say that you need to see, sometimes you need to see someone where you want to be to feel that you can achieve it. But sometimes that's not possible. A lot of the things that
Mm.
I've done, very often, even now with my clients, I go into a room, I can be the only woman,
Yeah.
I can be the only woman and the only person of color that's in the room. That
Yeah.
happens, right? And so you have to, and I don't let that phase me. I'm in the room because I deserve to be in the room, and I need to own that. So I think that we need to really take it forward and really understand, okay, this is where we need to really understand where we want to be, and we have to make it known that
Mm.
that's where we want to be, and take advantage of those opportunities. The other thing that I would say is we need to apply for the roles. When the roles
Yes, we do.
come up,
So
we
what
need
do
to
we need to do then? How do we do it? Because, someone is asking, how do you apply for this kind of roles? How do you put yourself forward?
so you
What
have
is the
to
action?
Yeah, so you have to look at that skill set that people are looking for, right?
Mm.
And we might not get it in the workplace. We might get it elsewhere. You might volunteer for a charity.
Right.
You might be a judo shooter outside of work. You could be doing all sorts of different things, right? You could be chair of your local I've forgotten what the name of it is,
Charity or
charity or something like that. You could
community.
be doing any of
Hmm.
those things, right?
Yeah.
So Women's Institute, that's what I was thinking of, your local women's. You could be
Yeah.
doing all of these things. So you are
Hmm.
managing a team, you've got a budget, you've got a treasurer, you're doing all of these things. You have to remember that all of these things are also important. So when you're applying for these roles, okay, maybe you're not leading someone in your role right now, or maybe you're only leading a small team. But
Yeah.
for your next role, you can pull in all of that experience, all of those things that you're doing, um, to show all the things that you've managed to achieve. Don't just look at your job to be the one place.
Yeah.
And it's important, if you can and you have the time, maybe get on the board of some charities, start doing some of
Mm.
those kind of things. Become a non-exec on a board of a charity, or a parent governor. Do something that's going to build up your experience of dealing with stakeholders, dealing with policies and processes, dealing
Mm.
with the strategy, making a plan, having a budget. All of those things, if you're not getting them in your workplace, find
Yeah.
them elsewhere so you can use them to apply for that next role, to get that next bit of experience. But don't be afraid to try.
That's right. Definitely. I think you've nailed it there, to be quite honest with you. We've got to do better. That's what I want to say. We've got to do better by just going for it. It's high time we stop limiting ourselves
Mm,
and just ask, because that's the only thing, that's the first step in terms of getting this roles. You've got to ask, you've got to see what's going on within your organization, and you've got to have mentors, right? You've got to have
mm,
mentors, people who have been in that position before. What did they do, and how can you take some of their things that they've done as well, that could actually help you to get to those levels, which is very important. And someone can be looking at us right now thinking, but how do I build up my leadership muscle? How do I even get started?
mm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
talk a bit about building leadership muscle and how people can actually get started with that.
Yeah, so like, as I said, I think that the first thing to do is to look at how before you can lead others, you need to lead yourself. So
Mm.
the very first thing is to start thinking about what your objectives are. So if you're not even writing down what you want to achieve, how are you going to get there, right? So you have to, at the very least, you have to start off with, this is where I want to be. If this is how much money I want to earn. This is where I want to live. This is, I don't know, it could be, this is the car I want to drive. This is whatever it is, right? that you start writing those things down, that you're clear about where you want to be, and you start taking the steps to get there. You set your clear objectives.
Right.
You are clear about, this is where I want to be. So if I say, this time next year I want to be living in Barbados 6 months of the year. That's not my next year goal, but it is there. But if I say that, then there are certain things that I need to do. There's certain things that I need to put in place, and I need to understand. All right, these are the steps, and this is when I need to get this done by. So if it's, I need to make sure the citizenship papers are sorted. I need to make sure I've looked for property. I need, whatever it is, I need to make sure that I put those things in place. And I think
Absolutely.
that the very first thing is to have a plan and start to work towards it. The second thing is to get help. So whether you have a mentor or a coach or a buddy who can hold you accountable, perhaps there's someone in your family or your friendship group who's a few steps ahead, where you want, they're closer to where you want to be, right? Someone who can give you some advice. Do that. Find someone who can help and support you, because you don't know what you don't know. When I started my business, I knew my HR stuff, but what did I know about running a business? I needed a mentor. I needed someone to help me. I needed someone to say, actually, this is a better way to do this. Look at how you can do this thing. Have you thought about doing that? Get someone in your corner who's going to hold you accountable and going
Right.
to give you some support to help stretch you to get to where you need to be. Um, those would be the first two things that I would say that you need to do, because once you've got your plan and once you've got someone who's going to hold you accountable and make sure that you do it, even if you want to call them names sometimes, then that will be, then you've got your steps, and then you can start thinking about, okay, what do I need to do next? And that might be a qualification, it might
Yeah.
be reading a book, it might be a combination of things, it might be going to some conferences, it might be going networking. But once you've got your list, and you start making those steps, then you can start moving forward, right? If you want to write a book, you have to put pen to paper or finger to keyboard. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. So at least you
Definitely.
need to start making those first steps and getting some help to support you.
Absolutely, definitely. Whatever is worth doing is actually worth doing well. So I think one of the first action is to actually write it down, bringing those ideas into reality and basically taking actions on those ideas, which is definitely true. So I wanted us to kind of look at some strategies to address many of these challenges that we've been able to speak about today, because I think that it's important for us to kind of share a solution, a way forward to
Mm,
help our viewers so that they can actually start taking the right steps. So thinking about this, I'm looking at things that people can actually do within their workplaces, and also what the workplaces can also provide as well. So,
mm,
for example, women who are in leadership roles and those who are aspiring to be leaders in their workplace, I think one of the greatest thing that could be something that you could speak out for in terms of using your voice is about ensuring that there is a female leadership program,
mm,
which offers professional women, a supportive community, which allows them to actually work and network with other familiar people within that organization who are actually experiencing some of the unique challenges that they also face. Because I feel such program will definitely build up women, especially those who lack confidence.
mm,
Because sometimes, like you said, some people have it to be a leader and some people don't. They have to go through some form of training or program to help them to become leaders. And women who lack confidence in leadership style, they would then definitely benefit from such programs
mm,
within an organization. I think it's so important that each organization look into how they can incorporate female leadership program there, and get them to participate. It's all about helping them to have team building, and also using different method and different techniques to help them to become the better leader within an organization. What are your thoughts?
yeah, no, I think you're definitely right. I think that there should always be some kind of leadership development program, something
Yes.
that enables people to, whether they are new leaders or they're aspiring leaders, where they can get some of the fundamentals. So, as I said, those fundamentals about the communication, about how you set clear objectives, about how you deal with difficult people, how you deal with
Mm,
disciplinaries and grievances and things like that. Those basic
definitely.
things that people need to have an understanding of. there
Yeah.
should definitely always be some kind of training program there. I think that it's really important to make sure that um, people have opportunities to kind of try it. So, like I
Mm.
said, that whole idea of like shadowing or mentoring, so that
Yeah.
they're able to try it in a safe environment. They're able to role play what they would do, or think about, look at case studies and think, okay, in this situation, what would I do? How would I deal with this? How would I get to the end of this? What would I
Yeah.
do? I think that's really important. I do think that
Definitely.
as well as the leadership program,
Mm.
mentoring is really important.
Yeah,
So
there's my next one. Good. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't necessarily believe that for female leaders they need to be mentored by females, because I've had male mentors who were just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so I do think that having a mentorship program is really
Hmm.
important. I feel like, honestly, I feel like everybody should have one,
Yeah.
because you should always have someone who's a couple of steps ahead of you, who you can talk to, who can open doors, who can introduce you to people, who can just help you as you progress and move and kind of make your way in business. Because it's just so important to have someone else to kind of bounce ideas off. And I mean, corporately, you tend to have, you have buddies, you have colleagues. When you're running your own business, like that's it, you're it, right? You're at the top of the tree. So
Yeah.
you, and it can be really lonely. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just want to say to somebody, oh, and sometimes when I work with my clients and I'll say stuff, because I'll come in and um, I'm kind of like the part-time HR director. So I'll come in and we'll be having a conversation and they say, I just want to do this thing. I'm like, so do it then. Like, really? Can I? Can I? It's your business, my love.
Yeah.
You can do that. And I think sometimes we all feel that way. We feel like, you might feel like, oh, I just want to take a week off, but you need someone else to almost say to you, it's okay. It's all
Yeah,
right. Just
exactly.
take the time. And so I do think that it's really important to I think it's really important that while we want to progress and we want to be amazing, we want to do all these things, that we also are talking to someone who can give you that understanding of, there is a balance here. There is still self-care that's needed. There
Yeah.
is still things that you need to do for your mental health. So in the beginning, I talked about going for my run this morning, right? That is a
Yeah.
big thing for me. If I haven't run for a couple of weeks, my husband will tell me, put your trainers on and leave the house. I need to go and do something. And so I think it's important that you're able to have a mentor, someone who can not just say to you, okay, here's what you need to do leadership wise. You've got this troublesome person here. Here's what I would say. Here's what I would do. But also to say, you're looking a bit stressed. You're looking like you need a break. Why don't you go take a walk? Why don't we go for a coffee and just have a general chat? Or is everything okay? When was the last time you took a holiday? When was the
Mm.
last time you didn't look at your laptop? When was the last time
Exactly.
when was the last time you put your phone down? Sometimes you also need someone who's going to do that for you. And so I think that it's really important to understand that as well. Understand that you don't just want someone who's going to be talking to you about how you're going to be a great leader. You also want someone who's going to be talking about you as a whole person. You're a whole person. You're
Right.
not just if I look at you, you're not just Hannah, the amazing businesswoman, are you? You're also
And more
wife,
than
also
that.
mother with a yeah. So you're multifaceted. So we need to make sure all of those things are taken care of. Um,
Absolutely.
yes, it's important to make sure that you have someone doing that with helping
In
you, making sure you're kept accountable.
absolute about effective communication, which I think is so important, especially for women in leadership roles who wants to kind of focus on their career advancement, and to look at their goals and things like that. And I really feel like it's important for them to be able to have a simple process to be able to talk to their managers or even, their supervisors to discuss in terms of the way forward,
Mm,
ensuring that they themselves they understand their professional accomplishment. They also have a vision, just like you mentioned, in terms of writing it down, understanding, what is your short term and your long term career objectives, what do you want in this role, and your strength, looking at how you can actually develop it even a little bit more further, basically using your voice
mm,
and speaking up for yourself, and also going for those roles that are available that you want to go for, and understanding that there are no limitations to where you can actually be, as a leader. It's all about, if you visualize it, then it's possible, it will come to life, but you've got to take the action. And I feel like sometimes, because of women having, this kind of sort of negative thoughts, they never really put themselves forward. So I
Mm.
think it's so important for them to do that, which is really important. Someone was telling me the other day that they also ensure that they are part of the human resources in their workplaces, and
Mm.
also they form like leadership allies, which
Yeah.
actually helps the company to shape up the company manifesto, the policy, and things like that. Because I think that's really powerful, because you're part of a leadership group then, isn't it? And
Mm.
you're part of, the change and things like that. What are your thoughts in regards to that, promoting equality?
Yeah, so I definitely think that, yes, I definitely think that it's really important to
Mm.
get your voice heard as
Yeah,
often as possible. So I think that if your organization has, whether it is that they have a women's board, or they have a diversity inclusion board, or they like whatever it might be,
yeah,
that you get involved, that you find out who the chair is, that you find out who the
yes,
representatives are,
definitely.
you're giving your input, you're finding out what's happening. I think
Mm.
that more and more organizations are setting up these kind of panels so that they can get people, that they can find out what people at all levels are looking for, where their challenges are, how they can, increase productivity and efficiencies and all those kind of things. So
Mm.
it's really great, a great opportunity. And yeah, normally all of those things are chaired by someone in the C-suite. So again, it's an opportunity to get your face known, to be in the right rooms, to be part of the right conversations. So I think it is really useful to do those things. But I think what is even more useful is that it's not just conversation. I think
Mm.
often, sometimes in those rooms, there can be lots of conversation about what we can do, and then you've got like minutes taken, and then they get shared, and then nothing happens. So
Yeah,
really, the important thing is to be looking at the action and to get involved in the action. So whether that is whether that is a forum, or there's a newsletter that's going out, or there's work in the community, or whatever it is, actually what's the action point, and how can I help with the action point, how can I make sure that those things happen.
yeah,
Because I think a lot of the times I've sat in some of these things where they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but at the end of the day,
no
nothing
action.
changes. So
Mm.
what we need to make sure is that it's not just that we're sitting on this board in a nice room with our tea and our biscuits, but that we're actually doing something, that
Something.
something of substance is happening and it's making a change. um, and most organizations are looking at what they can do in their local, in their local boroughs, how they
Mm.
can, a lot of organizations have volunteering opportunities and things like that. They'll give you like a day or two a year to go volunteer for a great charity. They'll do
Yeah,
things like that. So also, so it's also important to think about if there's a way that you can bring something that will, bring something in. I did, one of the things I did way back in the day was I used to go to a local school and do reading with the primary school children.
yeah,
Who
I
were,
did that as well.
right,
Hmm.
so I did the volunteer reading scheme, and it was great. So
Yeah.
they came in, and there was about 10 of us, and they trained us. And once a week at lunchtime, we went and we donated our lunchtime, and we went and we did some reading with some children, and that was
Mm.
great. But I was helping children to read and helping with their literacy and all those things, which was great.
Right.
um, but also, once you negotiate with children, you can negotiate with anyone, right? So
Tell me about it.
exactly, again it's that skill. So you're still building the skill, you're learning how you having to flex your style, you're communicating. I'm talking to 4 different children, they all come
Mm.
from different backgrounds, they speak different, maybe first languages. You're having to flex your style, you're having to do things differently, you have to communicate differently. So you're still building your skill set.
Yeah.
And so it is important to make sure that there's value in what you're doing. It's not just I sat on this board, but that
Mm.
again, it comes down to applying for that job. You're able to say, I was on this board, and this is what we did, and this is what I did, and this is how I made sure this happened. And like, you need to be able to pull out those
Mm.
receipts again. So not just I'm just,
Definitely.
but these are the great things I did too.
Indeed. Most definitely. Listen, we've had a great conversation in regards to leadership and how women need to use their voices to really ask for what they want, and to also own their power, isn't it? They have to
Mm.
own it and understand who they are in this season. So it's been such a great pleasure to have you on the show, Melanie. I hope you've actually enjoyed yourself today.
Yeah, I always enjoy myself when I get to talk to you. No, it's been really good. It's been really fun to have a good chat.
Absolutely. And just before you go, I just wanted to ask you one or two fun questions that I usually ask my guests. So, number one is, if you could have a billboard with anything in it, what would it be and why?
Oh, a billboard. Oh.
It could be a message, it could be a quote, it could be an inspirational image.
So my favorite quote is by Jim Rohn, and he says, "If you don't like where you are, move. You're not a tree." It would need
Ooh.
it would need to be quite
Okay, that's very interesting. Absolutely. And then just one more fun question. So, if you could turn back the time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Oh gosh, I would tell her, don't worry about trying to fit in. Um,
Yeah.
they won't be your friends later on. Um,
Mm,
and go for what you want. Like, don't be afraid to
yeah.
go for what you want.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that because many of us are trying to fit in, isn't it?
Mm.
Into what will no longer even serve us in the future. And because we are younger, we feel like these people are going to be with us forever and this is going to be the best, happily ever after friendship. But sometimes things break along the way. So I definitely resonate with what you said in terms of don't stress yourself too much, just do what you can, which is very, very important. So, just lastly, what message do you have for all the women who are celebrating International Women's Day today?
Well, celebrate it. Like, have some fun, have some cake, have some champagne if that's the thing that you want to do.
Yeah,
I think we have to recognize that we have come a long way. If we look at
right.
where our parents, our mothers, our grandmothers were, we have come an awful long way, but we
Hmm.
still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And so we need to use our voices. We need to shout from the rooftops. We need to demand what it is that we
Hmm.
need, and that we want for not just for us, but for the generations to come and to come and to come.
Absolutely. Definitely, for sure. So, thank you so much. And I would love you to actually strike the pose with me. The pose for Break the Bias. So, I'm ready if you are, just on a
I'm
count.
ready. I'm
Yeah,
ready.
just on a count of one to three. So,
Mhm.
one, two, three. Okay, it's a wrap. Thank you all for watching us today. I hope you've had a great time, and I hope you're able to take many of the tips and strategies to help you to be able to become a better leader. So, to all the amazing viewers, all the wonderful women who are watching us today on the Birth Your Vision podcast, we want to wish you a happy International Women's Day. So, whatever you do today, make sure you enjoy yourself and celebrate yourself. So, until next time, take care. Have a great day. Stay blessed. Thank you so much, Melanie, for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. Bye.